I was pushed out of my family after divorce, but when ex's GF crossed the line with my daughter, I fought back and won. Now ex wants to make amends. I never imagined I'd be in this situation. My name is Rachel, I'm 35, and I'm watching my family fall apart for the second time. My ex-husband, Jeffrey, 38, and I divorced 3 years ago after a decade of marriage. We have a daughter, Cynthia, who's 9 and the light of our lives. Jeffrey and I met in college. I was a shy English major, and he was the charismatic business student everyone knew. We were an unlikely pair, but somehow we clicked. After graduation, we got married and started our lives together. Jeffrey landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm, while I pursued my dream of teaching. The first few years were blissful. We bought a small house, adopted a golden retriever named Max, and spent our weekends exploring local hiking trails. When Cynthia came along, our world shifted in the best way possible. Jeffrey was an attentive father, always ready with a bedtime story or a silly dance to make Cynthia laugh. But as time went on, things changed. Jeffrey's job became more demanding, and he started spending long hours at the office. I was juggling teaching and caring for Cynthia, often feeling like a single parent. We grew apart, our conversations becoming shorter, our shared moments fewer. The breaking point came when I discovered Jeffrey had been confiding in a female coworker about our marital problems instead of talking to me. While there was no physical affair, the emotional betrayal was too much to bear. We tried counseling, but it was clear our marriage had run its course. Despite the pain of our divorce, Jeffrey and I agreed to prioritize Cynthia's well-being. We managed to remain cordial, even continuing our tradition of Sunday dinners with his parents, Nick, 65, and Pamela, 63. They had always treated me like a daughter, and I was grateful that didn't change after the divorce. Nick and Pamela's house became a neutral ground for us. It was a place where Cynthia could see her parents interacting peacefully, where we could pretend to be a family again, if only for a few hours. Pamela would cook her famous pot roast, and Nick would regale us with stories from his days as a high school football coach. Those dinners became a lifeline for me, a reminder that family isn't always defined by marriage. For 3 years, we maintained this delicate balance. Jeffrey and I coordinated schedules, attended Cynthia's school events together, and even managed to celebrate holidays as a unit. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. Then, 6 months ago, Jeffrey met Amanda, 41. At first, I was genuinely happy for him. Amanda was a divorced mother of 2 teenagers, and I thought she might understand our complicated family dynamic. I even encouraged Jeffrey to bring her to our family dinners, thinking it would be good for Cynthia to see her dad in a healthy relationship. But from the moment Amanda entered the picture, things began to unravel. Jeffrey started canceling his time with Cynthia, making excuses about work or other commitments. Cynthia would come home dejected, telling me she saw pictures of her dad, and Amanda at restaurants on nights he was supposed to be with her. I tried to give Jeffrey the benefit of the doubt. I remembered how intoxicating new love could be, and I hoped he'd find his balance soon. But weeks turned into months, and Jeffrey's behavior didn't improve. The real issues started when Amanda began attending our family dinners. From the beginning, she seemed determined to stake her claim. She'd make subtle digs about my teaching career, implying it wasn't a real job compared to her role as a marketing executive. She'd critique my contributions to the meals, always bringing an elaborate dessert that overshadowed my simple apple pies. One Sunday, I arrived at Nick and Pamela's house to find Amanda wearing my old apron, the one Pamela had given me on my first Christmas as part of the family. It was hand-embroidered with little sunflowers, my favorite. When I asked about it, Pamela just shrugged and said, "Oh, Amanda needed an apron, and that one was just hanging there." It felt like a knife to my heart. I watched as Amanda charmed Nick and Pamela, laughing at Nick's old jokes and complimenting Pamela's decor. They seemed enamored with her, and I felt myself being pushed to the sidelines of a family I'd been part of for over a decade. Cynthia was struggling too. She'd come home from weekends with Jeffrey, quiet and withdrawn. When I gently probed, she'd reveal snippets of information. Amanda criticizing her drawings, Jeffrey being distracted by his phone during their time together, promises of outings that never materialized. Things came to a head last week. Cynthia had the lead role in her school play, a part she'd been practicing for months. Jeffrey had promised to be there, even marking it in his calendar when I reminded him. But when the curtains opened, Jeffrey's seat was empty. I watched my daughter scan the audience repeatedly during her performance. Her eyes filled with hope every time the auditorium door opened. By the end of the play, her bright smile had dimmed. When I went backstage to congratulate her, she burst into tears. Later that night, after I'd tucked a still sniffling Cynthia into bed, I saw a post on Jeffrey's social media. He and Amanda were at a concert, all smiles and neon wristbands. The timestamp showed they'd been there during Cynthia's play. I was furious. The next day, I confronted Jeffrey. I expected him to be apologetic, to realize the magnitude of his mistake. Instead, he got defensive. He accused me of being jealous of Amanda, of trying to guilt-trip him for moving on. When I pointed out that this was about Cynthia, not me, he scoffed and said I needed to stop using our daughter as a weapon. His words left me reeling. This wasn't the Jeffrey I knew. The man who'd once stayed up all night to finish Cynthia's science project with her. The father who'd tear up at every one of her milestones. To make matters worse, I've noticed a shift in Nick and Pamela's behavior. They used to call me regularly, checking in on Cynthia and me, inviting us over for impromptu dinners. Now, my texts often go unanswered, and our interactions at family dinners have become stilted and formal. When I finally worked up the courage to ask Pamela about it, her response left me cold. "We don't want to take sides," she said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "It's a difficult situation for everyone. But isn't that what family is for? To take your side when you need support the most?" I've been a part of this family for 13 years. I've nursed Nick through a bout of pneumonia, helped Pamela plan surprises for landmark anniversaries, and been a constant presence in their lives. Now, it feels like none of that matters. I feel like I'm losing my family all over again. The divorce was painful, but this slow exclusion, this subtle replacement of me in their lives hurts even more. Jeffrey and I may not be married anymore, but I thought we'd always be a family for Cynthia's sake. Now, it feels like Amanda is replacing me not just in Jeffrey's life, but in Cynthia's too. I'm at a loss. I want to fight for my place in this family, to remind them of the history we share and the love that's always bound us together. But I also don't want to cause more drama for Cynthia. She's already struggling with all these changes, and I fear that any conflict will only hurt her more. Part of me wonders if I should just step back, let Amanda take my place at those family dinners in Nick and Pamela's affections. Maybe it would be easier for everyone. But then I look at Cynthia, at the confusion and hurt in her eyes, and I know I can't give up. I don't know what to do. How do I navigate this new reality? How do I protect Cynthia and myself without causing more pain? I feel like I'm walking a tightrope, and one wrong move could send us all tumbling down. Update 1. It's been a month since my last post, and I wish I could say things have improved. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support. Your words have been a lifeline during this tumultuous time. After my last post, I decided to have a serious talk with Jeffrey about Cynthia. I spent days preparing what I wanted to say, determined to keep the conversation focused on our daughter's well-being rather than our personal issues. We met at a neutral coffee shop, away from the watchful eyes of Amanda or the loaded atmosphere of Nick and Pamela's house. At first, Jeffrey was defensive, his arms crossed and his jaw set. But as I calmly laid out how his actions were affecting Cynthia, I saw a flicker of the old Jeffrey, the caring father I once knew. I reminded him of the promise we made when we divorced, to always put Cynthia first. I told him about her tears after the missed play, about the way she scans crowds looking for him, about the sadness in her voice when she talks about weekends at his house. To my relief, Jeffrey seemed to listen. He apologized for missing the play and promised to do better. For a while, things improved. Jeffrey started showing up for Cynthia's events. He reduced the number of times he brought Amanda to family dinners. He even called me to discuss Cynthia's upcoming school projects, something he hadn't done in months. I allowed myself to hope that we were finding our footing again. However, last week, something happened that shook me to my core. Cynthia came home from a weekend at Jeffrey's house in tears. It took hours of gentle coaxing before she finally opened up. Apparently, Amanda had been going through Cynthia's backpack and reading her diary. Cynthia's diary was a gift from me on her 8th birthday. I remember telling her it was a special place for her thoughts and feelings, a private space just for her. The thought of Amanda violating that privacy made my blood boil. I immediately called Jeffrey to confront him about it. To my shock, he defended Amanda's actions. "She was just trying to get to know Cynthia better," he said, his voice dismissive. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." We had a huge argument. Jeffrey accused me of turning Cynthia against Amanda, of being unable to accept that he had moved on. I tried to make him understand that this wasn't about me or Amanda, but about respecting Cynthia's boundaries. But it was like talking to a brick wall. The next day, I got a call from Pamela. Her voice was cold as she told me that Jeffrey had informed them about the diary incident. But the story he told them was vastly different from reality. According to Jeffrey, I had made the whole thing up to cause problems between him and Amanda. I was stunned. I tried to explain my side, to make Pamela understand the truth. But I could hear the doubt in her voice. This woman who had once been like a second mother to me now seemed to view me as an unreliable narrator in my own life. To make matters worse, Jeffrey is now threatening to seek full custody of Cynthia. He claims that I'm poisoning Cynthia against him and Amanda, and that living with them full-time would be better for her. The mere thought of losing my daughter sends me into a panic. I've started documenting everything. Every missed visit, every incident with Amanda, every conversation with Jeffrey. I'm prepared to fight if I have to, but I'm terrified of what this will do to Cynthia. She's already struggling with the tension between her parents. A custody battle could devastate her. Nick and Pamela have become even more distant. They've started declining my invitations to spend time with Cynthia, saying they're too busy. Last week was Cynthia's piano recital, an event they've never missed before. But this time, their seats remained empty. Cynthia's disappointment was palpable as she scanned the audience, looking for her grandparents' familiar faces. I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. Jeffrey seems determined to push me out of Cynthia's life, and Amanda is all too happy to take my place. The family I thought I had, even after the divorce, is slowly slipping away. I'm trying to stay strong for Cynthia, but it's getting harder every day. I put on a brave face, helping her with homework, cheering at her soccer games, and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. But inside, I'm crumbling. Last night, as I was tucking Cynthia into bed, she asked me a question that broke my heart. "Mom," she said, her voice small, "do Grandma and Grandpa not love us anymore?" I held her close, assuring her that of course they still loved her, that adults sometimes have complicated feelings, but it doesn't change their love. But as I said the words, I wondered if I still believed them myself. I'm at a crossroads, unsure of my next move. Should I try to reason with Jeffrey one more time, to make him see how his actions are hurting our daughter? Should I start looking for a lawyer, preparing for the custody battle Jeffrey is threatening? Or should I focus all my energy on being the best mom I can be to Cynthia, hoping that my love and stability will be enough to see her through this difficult time? I feel lost and alone, watching the family I loved and the life I built slipping through my fingers. But I know I have to keep fighting. If not for myself, then for Cynthia. She deserves parents who put her first, grandparents who show up, and a family that makes her feel secure and loved. I just wish I knew how to make that happen. Update 2. 2 months have passed since my last update, and the situation has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has been following my story and offering support. Your words have been a beacon of light during these dark times. After the diary incident, I realized I needed to take concrete action to protect Cynthia. I consulted with a lawyer, explaining the situation and Jeffrey's threat to seek full custody. The lawyer advised me to start gathering evidence of Jeffrey's neglectful behavior and Amanda's inappropriate actions. For weeks, I meticulously documented every incident. I saved text messages where Jeffrey canceled plans with Cynthia at the last minute. I kept a log of every time Amanda overstepped boundaries. I even started recording phone conversations with Jeffrey, with his knowledge, as per my lawyer's advice. It was an exhausting and emotionally draining process, but I knew I had to do it for Cynthia's sake. Throughout this time, I tried to shield Cynthia from the growing tension. I maintained our routines, helped her with school projects, and tried to create happy moments amidst the chaos. But children are perceptive, and I could see the worry in her eyes, the way she'd flinch when the phone rang, fearing it was her dad canceling plans again. Things took an unexpected turn last week. It was a regular Wednesday afternoon, and I was at work, teaching my 4th grade class. Suddenly, I got a call from Cynthia's school. My heart dropped when the secretary told me Cynthia hadn't shown up for her afternoon classes. Panic set in as I rushed to the school. Had something happened to her? Was she sick? But when I arrived, I found out something that made my blood run cold. Amanda had picked Cynthia up from school without my knowledge or permission. I called Jeffrey immediately, my hands shaking as I held the phone. He answered casually, as if nothing was wrong. When I demanded to know where Cynthia was, he said, "Oh, I asked Amanda to pick her up. I had a meeting I couldn't reschedule." I was livid. This was a clear violation of our custody agreement. I reminded Jeffrey that only he or I were authorized to pick Cynthia up from school, not Amanda. But Jeffrey dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting and that Amanda was practically family now. That was the last straw. I hung up on Jeffrey and called my lawyer. Within hours, we had filed for an emergency custody hearing. The judge granted it, and we were in court 3 days later. Jeffrey was shocked when he saw me walk in with my lawyer. He hadn't expected me to take such drastic action. But as I presented all the evidence I had gathered, the missed visitations, the boundary violations, the unauthorized school pickup, I saw the color drain from his face. The judge was not impressed with Jeffrey's behavior or his decision to let Amanda pick up Cynthia without my consent. She listened patiently as Jeffrey tried to defend himself, claiming he was just trying to integrate Amanda into Cynthia's life. But his arguments fell flat in the face of the documented evidence. The outcome was better than I could have hoped for. The judge modified our custody agreement, giving me primary custody of Cynthia. Jeffrey's visitation rights were restricted, and he was ordered to attend parenting classes. The judge made it clear that any future violations could result in further restrictions. While I felt a sense of relief at the custody decision, the fallout has been intense. Jeffrey is furious. He's been sending me angry texts, accusing me of stealing his daughter and ruining his life. I've had to block his number to get some peace. Amanda has taken to social media, painting me as a vindictive ex-wife who can't move on. She's been posting photos of her with Jeffrey and Cynthia, talking about how I'm tearing their family apart. It's all I can do not to respond, to set the record straight. But I know engaging would only make things worse. The most painful part of all this has been Nick and Pamela's reaction. They called me after the hearing, not to check on Cynthia, but to berate me for tearing the family apart. Pamela, the woman who once held my hand through 18 hours of labor, told me I should have tried harder to make things work with Jeffrey and Amanda for Cynthia's sake. Nick, who taught me how to change a tire and always called me his bonus daughter, said I was being selfish. Their words cut deep. I tried to explain my side, to make them understand that this was about protecting Cynthia, not about me versus Jeffrey. But they wouldn't listen. The call ended with Pamela telling me that perhaps it would be best if we took a break from family dinners for a while. I hung up the phone feeling like I'd lost my parents all over again. Cynthia is struggling to process everything. She's happy to be with me more, but she misses her dad and grandparents. She doesn't understand why she can't see them as often, and it breaks my heart to see her confusion. I'm doing my best to reassure her and keep things as normal as possible, but it's a challenge. I'm trying to focus on the positives. Cynthia is safe, and I don't have to worry about Amanda overstepping boundaries anymore. But I can't help feeling a sense of loss. The family I thought I had, even after the divorce, is gone. The shared dinners, the impromptu visits, the sense of belonging, it's all vanished. There are moments when I doubt myself. Was I too harsh? Should I have tried harder to make things work with Jeffrey and Amanda? But then I remember Cynthia's tears, her violated privacy, the broken promises, and I know I did the right thing. Still, the weight of it all is overwhelming at times. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm focusing on creating a stable, loving environment for Cynthia. We've started new traditions, Friday night movie marathons, Saturday morning pancake breakfasts. I'm trying to fill the void left by Jeffrey and his parents with new memories, new joy. I don't know what the future holds. Will Jeffrey follow through with the parenting classes? Will Nick and Pamela ever understand my side of things? Will Cynthia be okay through all of this? There are so many unanswered questions, so much uncertainty. But one thing I know for sure, I'll keep fighting for what's best for Cynthia, no matter what. She's all that matters now. Update 3. 6 months have passed since my last update, and it feels like a lifetime. The dust has settled somewhat, but the landscape of our lives has been irrevocably changed. I want to thank everyone who's been following my story and offering support. Your words have been a source of strength during this challenging time. After the custody hearing, things were tense for a while. Jeffrey initially refused to attend the court-ordered parenting classes, insisting that he didn't need them. He missed his first 2 visitations with Cynthia, claiming he was too busy with work. Cynthia was devastated, and I was at a loss for how to comfort her. But then, something shifted. Maybe it was the reality of the situation sinking in, or perhaps it was missing Cynthia, but Jeffrey started to change. He began attending the parenting classes, and, to my surprise, he seemed to be taking them seriously. He started showing up for his visitations on time and began making more of an effort with Cynthia. About 2 months ago, Jeffrey asked to meet with me. We met at the same coffee shop where we had our confrontation months earlier. This time, Jeffrey was different. He was subdued, almost humble. He apologized for his behavior over the past year, admitting that he had let his excitement over his new relationship cloud his judgment as a father. We had a long, honest conversation about our co-parenting relationship and what was best for Cynthia. For the first time in months, I felt like I was talking to the Jeffrey I used to know. The man who would do anything for his daughter. As for Amanda, she's no longer in the picture. Jeffrey revealed that they broke up shortly after the custody hearing. Apparently, she couldn't handle the new visitation schedule and the restrictions placed on their interactions with Cynthia. Jeffrey admitted that he had ignored red flags in their relationship, too caught up in the excitement of new love to see how it was affecting Cynthia. Nick and Pamela have slowly started to come around. They reached out to me about 2 months ago asking to see Cynthia. I was hesitant at first, the hurt from their earlier rejection still fresh. But Cynthia missed them terribly, so I agreed to a meeting in a neutral location. To my relief, they were warm and loving toward Cynthia. They brought her favorite cookies and listened attentively as she told them about her recent school play. As Cynthia was engrossed in a book they had brought her, Nick and Pamela turned to me. They apologized for their behavior, admitting that they had been so caught up in supporting Jeffrey that they lost sight of what was best for Cynthia. Pamela had tears in her eyes as she told me how much she missed our Sunday dinners and our impromptu coffee dates. Nick squeezed my hand and called me kiddo, his old nickname for me that I hadn't heard in months. It wasn't an easy conversation. There were moments of tension, old hurts bubbling to the surface, but it was a start. We agreed to take things slow, to rebuild our relationship step by step. Cynthia is doing better now. She's thriving in school and has started taking dance classes, something she's always wanted to do. She still has moments of sadness about the changes in our family, but overall, she seems happier and more settled. Jeffrey and I are learning to co-parent in this new reality. We're not friends, not yet. But we're cordial. We can sit together at Cynthia's school events without tension. We're both making an effort to communicate better about Cynthia's needs and schedules. As for me, I'm finally starting to feel like I can breathe again. The constant stress and fear of losing Cynthia have subsided. I've started painting again, a hobby I had abandoned years ago. It's become a form of therapy, a way to process all that's happened. I've even started dating again, though I'm taking things very slowly. His name is Michael, and he's a kind, patient man who understands the complexities of my situation. He's respectful of my relationship with Cynthia and doesn't try to push for more than I'm ready to give. Looking back, I realize how close I came to losing myself in this situation. I'm proud that I stood my ground and fought for what was best for Cynthia. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I wanted to give up. But I'm glad I persevered. I know we still have a long road ahead. Co-parenting with Jeffrey will always have its challenges, and rebuilding trust with Nick and Pamela will take time. But for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about our future as a family, whatever form that may take.